Welcome to the Playbook presented by the Leaders Lab. I'm Ken Eslick, and if you're a leader or founder who wants to hire top talent, scale your business, and sell for more, you're in the right place. Each week, Annika Kwacha and I bring you practical, actionable advice that you can put to work immediately to make an impact in your business today. And now, here's this week's episode. Welcome back to the Playbook. I'm your host, Ken Eslick, and on the show today, I'm excited for you to meet Katie Shannon. She is a life and leadership coach, a facilitator and speaker who helps founders, executives, and high-achieving leaders break free from outdated patterns and step fully into their most courageous, creative, and unapologetic potential. Katie's work is rooted in deep emotional truth, radical honesty, and the belief that real success isn't just what looks good on paper, but what feels aligned at the core. She's coached senior leaders across global organizations and high-growth companies, guiding them to unlock clarity, courage, and lasting impact in both message and life. Her message is simple but powerful. When leaders stop playing small and start owning who they really are, they don't just transform their own lives, they change the world around them. Please join me in welcoming Katie to the Playbook next. Hi, Katie. Welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you this morning.
I'll give the listeners a little backdrop. Katie and I were collaborating on some business stuff. We didn't really know each other, and we met on LinkedIn. We've had 2 calls so far that we were like, man, that was pretty good. We probably should have just recorded that, right? We had some really good in-depth conversations for somebody I just met. I know that you coach executives and teams and leadership groups, but I kind of want to know the backstory. Like, how did you get here? And then today, specifically, what I want to talk about is identity shifts that you had along the way, how we can talk about those and how, as leaders and as humans, how our identity can shift over time and how we react to that and how we can change that.
Beautiful. I love where we're going with this conversation already. Let's go.
All right. So tell me about you. Where'd you grow up? What was life like? Where'd your career start? All that kind of stuff.
Sure. So I'll start weaving in the identity piece to where I grew up. Usually when people ask that question, there's a piece of me that cringes inside because I feel like I'm from nowhere and everywhere. My family moved a lot when I was younger. My parents were very adventurous, and I keep losing count because part of my stuff is vagueness and getting the clarity. That's part of my identity issues.
Sure.
I went to 8 different schools before 18. We lived in 7 different places. That constant having to figure out, how do I go into this new environment and create safety for myself? Who is my identity? Like, I'm not coming in and pronouncing what my identity is. I'm looking to everyone else to figure out what my identity is so that I can feel safe, like I belong, and integrate as soon as possible.
And what was the world telling you? What was your environment telling you in terms of who you needed to be back then?
Well, I think it was different every single place. Living in Florida was different than living in Northern Virginia. Going to Montessori school was different than public school. Going to an ultra wealthy private school was different than going to a Catholic school in the middle of Florida that was like varsity blues and everyone was related. It really just depended. And I think I grew up learning this hyper-vigilance of understanding my surroundings really quickly and reacting. Both my parents grew up in alcoholic homes, so they developed these skill sets as well. Me being a child of that, there was a lot of dysfunction, a lot of control, a lot of feeling out of control. And so there was this identity constantly of find safety as quickly as possible through control.
As you got older, I'm guessing, because we didn't move as much, but a decent amount. And I felt like every time you're in that new environment, there's this need to reestablish yourself, right? And like you said, the monastery school was different than the private school. What behavioral or character traits did that develop? Did you find yourself being a pleaser or a peacemaker, or was it more like, I think the most important thing is fitting in? I think a lot of times as adults, the most important thing is fitting in. We're all hardwired for connection, but I think especially when you're 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, you just don't want to be an outcast. You know what I mean? You want to fit in. And so early on, what were some of the behavior traits that developed in you?
People pleaser,
Yeah.
definitely. I would become student of the month, like the first month of the school year. Like, I knew I needed to become the teacher's pet. She would become a safe ally. Performance in sports, any kind of performance activity, not so much schoolwork. I was never a good student sitting at a desk and staring at a chalkboard. Like, my mind was going, I was very imaginative and creative. So my mind was always in a million different places except the present. And I was asked at 10 years old to learn how to learn conflict resolution and be a peer mediator. Teachers saw at an early age that I had these skill sets to utilize, learn behavioral assessments and watch body language and what that actually meant. And so I feel like that was the first signal I was supposed to be doing this work, the vocation, if you will.
It's really cool because there's pluses and minuses to it. Like, on one hand,
Uh-huh.
it's like I'm lost and I'm not sure how to navigate in these new circumstances. But then the more that you do it, the more that you're learning it, that becomes like this marketable skill of like, well, Katie knows how to go to environments and create harmony or settle in, or you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Hmm.
so maybe she can see that in others. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And I can go more into how I got to here today, but I never chose this.
Yeah.
I didn't seek out to be an executive coach, a facilitator. It 1,000% chose me. And I tried to shy away from it for years. Coming into COVID and being in isolation and seeing how much pain people were in, it was really this calling and stepping up of, all right, it's
Mhm.
time to own your magic and be of service at a greater level.
What were you doing prior to that? So,
Fast. So once I started working, I worked from an early age, 15. I started in hospitality. I waited tables. I managed restaurants. I stayed in that hospitality lane, even though I studied psychology, because to me, it really was being in the wild and experience as opposed to the lab and working one on one. It was like I got to be in the epicenter of neuroses.
yeah.
Hospitality, especially high-end hospitality, was the standard for me. Through my 20s and early 30s, I worked for brands like Intercontinental, Four Seasons. The previous CEO of Ritz-Carlton started his own hotel company, and I worked for one of the first hotels that he managed. I just worked my way up, but I never had this grand vision of being like an SVP or an RVP of a hotel company. I just always had this like need for freedom and creating my own path. Before I did that, I worked for two different family offices, consulting for one, and then one really big one for the founder of Under Armour. So I worked with him and his wife, and we had a number of companies coming out of that family office, and then like the behemoth Under Armour, who almost was like a client of the family office. So I got to understand how those dynamics worked. The through line through my entire career, specifically really like Four Seasons and then coming into the family office space, is I could take really complicated family dynamics and when they mixed with business and find a way for everyone to move forward, they could handle more conflict, that they really were elevating their emotional skill sets, their verbal skill sets, and like feeling really powerful in the relationship. And so that's what I really took out of those pieces and brought it down to that specific conflict resolution and people really owning, embracing, learning, and developing their own power, which I call soft power, as opposed to dominance, which is spread throughout business, politics, etc. And I wanted to go in a more sophisticated direction
Right.
and what we typically see and experience in the workplace.
Were you happy overall in those roles when you think back in your 20s and early 30s?
It's a great
Was that aligned and were you feeling good about that, or did it feel like something was off?
I felt unfulfilled and I was a high achiever, so I did well. And that is a lethal combination.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people who listen to your podcast and have been on your podcast have experienced that, the golden handcuffs, the accolades, the validation, the money, the titles, all the access. Like I have these things that I should want that other people are jealous of. They ask, did I get in these positions in this proximity to power, et cetera. And I'm like, I'm so dead inside.
Did you feel like something when you're feeling that feeling of I feel so dead inside or I feel unfulfilled? Were you ever like, what's wrong with me? I was aiming for this thing, I got this thing, and it's almost like a double whammy, because not only do I not feel fulfilled by whatever it is, the money, the prestige, but I don't feel fulfilled. Therefore, what the hell's wrong with me? Because I've been there myself, and I'm
Yeah.
curious how that felt for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when I think about my 20s and my 30s, and I'm 41 now, like I was living on menu. Like
Yeah.
there was a menu of options that were presented to me as far as career is concerned. And I was just, going off menu of
Right.
what was presented. I didn't know there was an off menu option.
Right.
That really required me to dig deeper into what are my desires? What are my wants? How do I want to live my life? How do I want to be spending my time? Who do I want to be around? What are my own personal values? How do I marriage, my personal, my professional life, and really create this like woven braid of life as opposed to a balance of one or the other. I really wanted to create from scratch a life and a business that felt authentic to me.
No, that's cool. I think, I want to say the American dream is BS, but it's someone else's dream, right? It's sort of this idea that we're all wired the same way. And if we work hard and get promoted, that's good. Like that's what we're all striving for, but we're all wired so differently. We all have such different skill sets that this idea that one size fits all. And I subscribed to that for a long time. It was like, well, maybe this is just as good as it gets. Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, life wasn't bad. There was a nice house, nice car, whatever. But then I'm looking at a friend of mine who, at one point in my life, I would have probably judged him for being at his age and in my version of success, not being more
Mm.
successful, because all he did was teach yoga. And I look back on that guy now and I go, I think he had it figured out for him. Like for me,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I do want some different things, but he was happy. He did what he loved, and money wasn't the most important thing guiding him. Contribution was, and day-to-day enjoyment and fulfillment was. And he really did strike me as one of the most fulfilled people. But on paper, I looked at everything sort of monetarily or materialistically. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's like, well, there's a lot more to it than that. In my own journey, I went through that myself. Is this it? I felt bad for pushing back on the universe has given me all this opportunity and I'm pushing back on it. And I ought to just shut up and say thanks and do it. Do you know what I mean? And I did
Mm.
that for a lot of years myself. Was COVID for you the pause that you needed to wrap your head around where you wanted to go with all this?
I had started 2 years prior really doing deep internal work, personal work,
Yeah.
and identity work because after I left working for the family offices, I just felt so vague about what do I actually want to do. And it was really driven by like, I don't want to work for anyone. It was like working for other people just boomeranged me into this like hyper independence.
Right.
And now I'm coming back to like, actually, I really do love collaborating with people. At that time, I had just traveled through Central America by myself for 9 weeks. I'd never done anything like that before. And I had finished a 4-month consulting gig, made some really good money. I just figured like, oh, I'm good for a while, as opposed to being strategic and planning. How much runway do I actually have? What do I want to do with this? You got to figure that out. I don't care how many times people tell you to do something. For me, I have to go through it
Yeah.
in order to really learn the lessons.
I'm the same way. I can't just intellectually get it and it be done. I wish I could
Um,
sometimes, but I have
Gotcha.
to feel it. I can't just hear it. And
100%.
I
100.
think one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, so again, when talking about identity, when I think back to what you're saying about your experience working in the family offices, again, things are good, you're performing well, doesn't feel that great overall. You kind of feel like there's something more. And to me, that's where, but I'll talk about mine since I just brought it up, but it was like when your identity and life conditions are out of alignment, there's no greater force in the world than our identity. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
no matter what we think it is, it could be bad. It could be like,
Mhm.
well, I think I'm a loser and I deserve to struggle with money and my health. Then I will design a life consistent with that. Do you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
even the upshot from that of like, maybe money could be better, maybe my health could be better, would
Mhm.
actually make me feel really uncomfortable unless I have an
Mhm.
identity shift that goes with it. Right. And I know you
Mhm.
understand that, but I'm curious, as you took the time to
Mhm.
get to know yourself and your wants, did you feel a strong identity shift, or was it like, I'm just going to go in this direction and see where it takes me? Or was it like complete, like lightning bolt, this is where I'm running?
I would say from age 35 to 40 was like a huge transformation.
Yeah.
I started weaning off of drinking and getting alcohol. And when you decide to raw dog it through life and feel all of your emotions without any substances,
Yeah.
that is a sobering life experience.
Yeah.
And while I don't identify as an alcoholic, I would definitely say that I have used alcohol as a numbing agent, and I just don't need it anymore. I can get to the place that alcohol brought me, especially in social settings now. And there was that piece. There was the getting in touch with my deep sensing, my intuition. And the more I've developed that relationship, during COVID, it was like, we're ready for an adventure again. We really like this adventurous path. I started my coaching business in 2020. By 2021, I packed up my apartment in Baltimore that I'd only lived in for a year. I lived on a retired farm in northern coastal Maine for the summer. I drove to Sandpoint, Idaho, and stayed there at a friend's condo for a month. I went through Walla Walla, Washington. I fell in love in Eugene, Oregon. My business was stable at the time. There's something really beautiful about only being able to think a couple of days in advance
Yeah.
and only having what you have in your car. Now I live in California and I live in Los Angeles. I don't even like to travel. It sounds exhausting to me to go to LAX and have to fly anywhere because it takes forever to get anywhere
Right.
from LA compared to living on the East Coast. That was a huge identity shift.
Yeah.
Chasing money, I think I am obsessed with money. But really what my thoughts are looking for is to know that I'm going to be taken care of.
Yeah. So it's safety more than accumulation.
100%.
Yeah.
It's something that feels really good and nurturing, like the money coming in.
Yeah.
If there's plenty, it feels like the faucet's not moving, then all of a sudden there's this feeling of not being safe. Even though there might be all these other ways that I am being provided for, things are entering in my life, opportunities coming in, overpaying on my power bill and not even realizing, and them contacting me and saying like, oh, we actually owe you $3,000.
Right.
They're just these different things and the stories and the deeper belief in my lesson of learning, like I'm always taken care of and trusting that, even though it's this thing that I cannot see.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit before, but when I went through, I'll kind of put it in two chunks. One was I decided to give up alcohol in 2017, but I didn't properly. There's a difference between abstinence and recovery, as you know, right? So abstinence is I'm going to give the thing up. And then recovery is actually I'm going to now do the work that will make me understand why did I do this so much anyway? What was I suppressing? And when it goes back, I don't know if it did for you, but for me, it went back to my early teens. When a habit starts in your early teens, in your developmental years, and you're already developing a crutch, then emotionally, I was really stunted, right? If you think about it, from the time of high school sophomore until I was in my early 50s, I didn't have too many difficult conversations other than work related, where it was very cut and dry, like personal difficult conversations without at least a couple of drinks, because that was what I could do. I didn't know I was an alcoholic when I stopped drinking. I knew that I was doing something over and over again, even though it was causing me harm. But I wasn't a wake up in the gutter, blah, blah, blah. But you could go back and look at different moments in my life. There were signs. When I was younger, I rolled a couple of cars. I lost my big corporate job. There was stuff, but I could always make it look pretty. I still had a nice house and a nice car, and all the status stuff that we were supposed to have still looked okay. Do you know what I mean? So I could kind of cover it. But what I really noticed when I stopped, and especially without any kind of recovery program, was how much of a crutch it was. Because it wasn't just for difficult conversations. It was celebrating good conversations. It was long day of work de-stressor. Do you know what I mean? And what I learned was, it really was an addiction. And I had not learned how to fully process my emotions, or I had gotten so used to being able to have medicine to help process my emotion that I just never even tried. And when you said a minute ago that I'm paraphrasing, but something about like having to muck your way through it or like sitting with your own feelings. Like that was me. I'm like, this is hard. It's not so much once you get it cleaned up and you develop that skill set, but if you've never really done that, I'm guessing for you, I'm kind of from a personality standpoint, like a high D driver,
Mhm.
direct, but it doesn't sound like you identify with that style. Like you probably grew up more, a little bit of D, but also a very strong level of support. So if you're a caretaker and a person who really values support and stuff like that, and then you're also taking away your crutch and having to
Mhm.
approach things head on, I'm guessing that was a different kind of experience or leaning into a new identity there as well.
Yeah, I think actually my softening is more recent. Like
Okay.
I've always been a high D. And uh, I think going from not expressing like
Yeah,
desires
yeah.
to then again, I go in extremes. So until I pendulum to the middle, like, okay, that's not working. What's the middle ground? I would have demands on people.
Yeah.
And I thought the way to write this is to tell them exactly what I want or what needs to happen. And that didn't work either.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drive myself to make shit happen.
Yeah.
It was always about this self will. And I've had to learn how to sit in withdrawal. Like someone withdrawing from alcohol, withdrawing from heroin, these hardcore drugs, I think withdrawal from love addiction, love deprivation, the emotional stuff is like that's the PhD level
Yeah.
that we as a society are not good at.
Right.
That's where our growth is.
Totally. I think the psychological dependencies are even tougher because if it's heroin,
Mhm.
we know heroin's bad. We know it's a substance. We know it's very hard to kick, but there's
Mhm.
a certain prescribed way that you would go about that. Do you know what I mean? Like you go to
Mhm.
treatment and you do this and that, but codependency doesn't really have that. Maybe a little more now, even a few years ago, they'd be like, well, stop it, just stop being codependent, right? Like
Mhm.
was kind of
Mhm.
the answer. I'm curious in your work with people, do you work more with women, more with men? I know it's a mix of both, but does it
Mhm.
lean one way or the other? Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Most leaders don't build organizations, they build cages, and you can't grow if everything depends on you. Whether you're a founder scaling your company or a corporate leader running a high performance team, growth starts with people. And that's why the first pillar at the Leaders Lab is building the right team. Before you scale, before you sell, before any big initiative, you need the right leaders around you. Our team has placed over 1,000 executives into Fortune 500 and fast growing startups and supported over 75 acquisitions along the way, helping leaders create over $1 billion in enterprise value. At the Leaders Lab, we help you hire top talent, scale with confidence, and build a business or team that can thrive without you. Take the free Scale Up scorecard at theleaderslab.co or email me directly, Ken at theleaderslab.co, to find out how ready your organization really is for growth. And now back to the playbook.
In the beginning, it was mostly women.
Yeah,
And then I started attracting male clients and I was like, "Oh, I need to create spaces where both can feel very safe.
sure.
Know and understand what it feels like to be in a safe environment with the opposite sex."
Okay, got you.
But in the last couple years, my business is skewed towards more men.
Okay.
And I would say that I deal with very different issues with men versus women. I feel like I'm dealing with different planets.
What are the most common issues you deal with? And you're primarily dealing with leaders and founders.
Exclusively leaders, founders, executive teams, mostly in the startup world, venture capital, family office. I don't typically work with big companies, but yeah, more so in the startup world, Series A, that type of.
So when you're dealing with female leaders, founders, you mentioned you're seeing different things between the male side and the female side in
Mhm.
terms of what the most common things. What are some of the most common things you're dealing with female leaders that they're struggling with?
Overworking to be taken as seriously as some of the mediocre men who are doing half of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like putting a mirror up and showing them that actually their stroke of genius and their learning is to do less. We've been given all of these messages like, not quite enough. You need to do more here. No, that's not true.
Where is it? I mean, I have my own thoughts and I get where it is, from a societal thing over generations, but I want to hear it from you. Where is that rooted in? So the idea that I need to work, I need to put in more hours, I need to do more, I need to be better. Obviously, some of that is rooted in reality, but another part, like internally, what are you helping them resolve? Is it confidence? Is it imposter syndrome, which is related to confidence? Is it people pleasing? Is it all of the above? What are some of the most common things that you're helping them with to get through that?
It's enough.
Yeah.
That's its simplest form.
Yeah.
I will say too that I work with the most incredible men.
Yeah.
Beyond fortunate to be able to coach who I do. I mean, they're lovely, big-hearted men, and they will be the first to mirror back to a woman. Like they pour into them. It's
Yeah.
beautiful to
Yeah.
see. But we have been trained from day one to perform, to be of service, to neglect ourselves. When in actuality, like when we're pouring into a man, we pour our full selves. Y'all want us to be full.
Yeah.
We could pour more,
Yeah.
but that is not how our society is set up. We have zero support for mothers.
Right.
Most of the women that I support are wives, are mothers. So they're trying to balance a whole life while also being a CEO of a company.
Yeah. One thing that you and I tapped into in one of our conversations before the show that led us to going, hey, we should just jump on a podcast and talk about it, was this subject. I think that it's so much different for a woman in business than a man in business. We all may have to lean into parts of our behavioral type. If you're self-aware, you have to go, here's what I'm good at. Here's what I'm not good at. If I'm not an analytical person, but there's times I need to see an analytical operation, I'm going to have to lean into that, right? We all have to do that at different times. But I think for a lot of men, especially men that are high D and in a leadership position, I keep using these DISC things because we take it all the time, but take the Enneagram, whatever other assessment you want to put in, the commander, the high D. Guys don't have to, if they're already wired that way, I don't have to wear a different hat when I leave here and show up at someone's office. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like when I'm a mom, I'm just supportive and I'm really leaning into that sort of caring, motherly, peacekeeper, whatever that might be, like super supportive. Then I'm a wife. I have to be that. And then work, which is a whole different ball game. I think traditionally for most women, I hate stereotyping. It's almost like feminine energy versus masculine energy. For someone with strong feminine energy, feeling like they need to lean into their masculine energy to be effective at work and not knowing how to switch that on and off. Because again, for me, it's just 24/7. I can be the same guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sounds like what you're doing, if I'm not mistaken, it is still be you, still be all of you, right? And you can be all of you and still be assertive. You can be all of you and still not apologize for shit that's not your fault, right? Like, are we on the right track?
Yeah. It's understanding your biology as a woman, understanding your cycles as a woman, understanding your innate power as a woman.
Right.
Like it's like we're born into these bodies of these like pristine luxury vehicles like a Ferrari, and we're using like a 1986 Toyota Corolla handbook.
Yeah.
We use it and we wonder why we're sick or why we have a chronic disease. But the system was built that way. In order to be considered successful, you do it the way that men are doing it to become successful. There's a whole other way
Yeah.
that I've seen, and it's profitable and it works.
Yeah.
And I think also it'd make a big difference if we rebranded, a woman being in the home as a homemaker, or like she's the CEO of your home.
Right.
Like I think even CEO of the home visually it makes a lot more sense. Even a CEO of a company, what exactly are you doing? That could be interpreted in so many different ways, depending
Right.
on your skill sets. Are you the fundraiser? Are you the main salesperson? Are you the face? What are you? But you know what a CEO of a home is.
Right.
You,
Right.
you know exactly what that role is. So I think if we rebranded that, it would give it a lot more respect.
Right.
And it wouldn't be this like, oh, you're taking time off to take care of your family. Like, no, you're moving into another role
Right.
time and you're coming back with a whole new slew of skill sets.
I wanted your take on something. I was talking with a friend this week. She's up for leadership in her current role and is kind of a pure leader right now. Super sweet, sometimes probably too much so in the sense that people will take advantage of her, right?
Mhm.
Like bullies sometimes recognize targets. They're sort of hardwired for that, right? And
Mhm.
so some of that's come into her life and has since kind of been resolved. But now that she's going into leadership, some of the things that are coming up are boundaries, not apologizing, trusting your gut. What are some of the tips you'd give someone? What are some of the tips you would give to a woman in business that is starting to rise into leadership to have more confidence, more ownership, less apologetic? Again, without a departure from who you are, but there's times you got to stand your ground and there's times you got to not
Yeah.
let people run you over.
So if I were in that position,
Yeah.
I would be under the understanding that I work for these people don't work for me.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I need to pour into them in order for them to bring out the best of their abilities, the maximum. I can't get attached to me being the leader and the one that's always right and the one that they're coming to for all the advice and me feeding it to them and then me getting that validation from. I think
Mhm.
leaders make a huge mistake when they get into that relationship.
Yeah.
There's me as the leader, there are all these people that I'm managing, and then there's the relationship. That's actually a separate entity, and we're giving and taking from it.
Mhm.
I need these people to be able to navigate challenges on their own and come up with brilliant solutions that I'm giving them feedback on. So, what I really want to create is a culture of self management. So, I'm going to set the tone early of when you come into my office, because people coming into your office all the time, they need answers to things that
Yeah.
like you're not getting anything done. We're setting the standard of when you come into my office, you're coming with a solution. I want you
Right.
to present that solution. We will workshop it together, but my job is to continue to empower you in your position and beyond that position so that if I get run over by a bus tomorrow, the bus is still going.
Yeah. And
You're self-sufficient. Yeah. And then you're moving on to whatever you want to move on to. And I think that's been one of my, and I learned that through 4 seasons. Like it was drilled into us. And so we were constantly stepping up our leadership game, and our ability and confidence to be able to navigate issues. So I think that would be like the first one that I would set.
I like also that you separated the, kind of relationships here and then, work is here and this is what we need to do and this is our mission because I think people that are, we can put them in this bucket of codependency, people pleasing, whatever, and leadership at the same time, right? That can be a really tough combination of things. I think what I try to impress upon people with that makeup is if you're truly there to support, like if what's in your heart is what's best for everyone else. And I do feel like people that are wired
Mm,
that way truly care about what's best for other people, then you have to do what is short term painful for their benefit for what is long term good, which means you may not be popular every day because people that are wired that way are really concerned with so and so doesn't like me right now. Sometimes you just got to go like, this is the right thing to do. This is the way we're going. You'll be mad for 3 or 4 days, but long term, it's all going to work out. Do you know what I mean? That's what it
Totally.
is. Yeah.
To give some context, I got yelled at this weekend by this man that I was helping facilitate a workshop for. I was doing this as volunteer work. And it was all surrounded by artists and artists actually earning in their artistry.
Yeah.
I live in Los Angeles. I work with a lot of artists, music industry. And he was really angry with me because I changed the agenda of the workshop 24 hours before because I got the agenda 24 hours before. This was the first time I was doing this model, first time working on this team. And he was spewing so much shit at me.
Yeah.
You're bad at your job. I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't know who you think you are. I'm not going to do this anymore. If you change this, just like boom, boom. There were two other men standing next to me, just watching me. And Ken, I'm so grateful that it happened because I just witnessed and watched myself. There was nothing for his shame hooks to hook into at all.
Yeah.
I didn't feel dysregulated. I wasn't taking it on. I just said, I really appreciate you sharing your feedback. I'll get back to you. And I walked away.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it after that.
That's
The
good.
other guys came to me. He suggested maybe doing a hyper model. Great. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't even really care. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just learning how to do this the first time too, and whatever.
Right.
And afterwards, he came up to me and apologized, made an amends
Right.
for how he acted. And we got along fine. Now, is that going to happen every time? No. But I would say to this person that you're coaching as well, go in there and ask whatever you believe in. I want to be triggered. I want to be so triggered. I want every little point inside me that could feel some hurt to be hit so that I can grow and get on the other side of it.
Totally. One thing, going back to, and we're calling it recovery here, but it can literally just be self-evolvement, right? Like the idea of becoming emotionally sober, right? Or, having, and to me, what you just said when you almost felt like you were having the out-of-body experience during that is what I learned over the last
Wait, I'm
several
going to correct you real quick. There's
Yes.
no out-of-body experience. I was completely in my body.
But being able to kind of witness it, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
And what I got from that, or what it was making me think of, was I realized how much in my leadership in my 20s and 30s was very reactive. You say this, I say this. I'm pissed off, I'm going to let you. And it's like there's beauty in the pause. You know what I mean? There's grace in the pause. There's grace in the, okay, like I don't know, in your case, you don't know that guy's model of the world. You don't know what's going on in his life. You don't know if, who knows, maybe his wife's pregnant and having issues, and who knows what's up. But all we can control is how we react to things, right? We can't control, we're literally in control of nothing except for our own emotions, right? I can't control other people. I can only control how I respond to it, how I react to it. And doesn't it feel good when you're like, I would have been totally justified at least having a little bit of a freak out. And I didn't even do that. I could even give myself a little freak out.
Yeah. And I would say as a coach, there have been times where I've had clients, and one in particular, he just raked me over the coals during one of my sessions, and it was internally rattling. We have such a beautiful relationship because of that experience and the repair
Yeah.
of that experience.
Yeah.
And I find, because I work with very ambitious people who have amassed success, that will never save them from their emotional selves.
Right.
And so they're going to test boundaries, especially with someone like me, to see, is she going to abandon me? Is she going to leave?
Right.
And if I lean into my own power source and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere, but I won't accept this behavior.
Right.
What do you need to feel safe in this space? Let's go a couple layers deeper. And I'm here and I'm going to be here with you. For the men clients, when you're asking what's the difference between the women and the men, the ones that have the higher volatility, what they really need is like a burp and a cry.
Yeah.
They need to just let it out, those feelings that they're terrified to feel, that we as a society don't allow them to feel.
Yeah.
And like the way I see men skyrocket in their emotional growth when they're able to witness themselves, most often it happens during an event where there's a lot of good happening and they are terrified. So a big exit or a catalog sale. I know this is going to be an interesting week. We're thinking it's going to be a huge celebration, but there's going to be some acting out behavior. And I always get ready for that, knowing that I've got to hold a bigger container.
Yeah. You're just kind of at the side going, okay, I'm ready. Here it comes.
And all that. Do you think it's because of this? No, no, no. And then a week later, it's like, I didn't realize how much me receiving X was going to be, or that I'd be yelling in the car with the kids over something that had nothing to do with this, but it actually had to do with the thing that just happened.
Right. So for women, you mentioned common threads. What about men? What are you seeing the most when you're coaching men?
I'm really lucky with the men I am working with that are willing and able to go into the emotional and personal work.
Yeah.
I would say men who are specifically attracted to my work and working with me. If you're not, then
It's not going to.
I do think our work is more of an advanced level. I find men wanting to be curious and ask questions about things they don't know about. But again, there's been this messaging that they're supposed to know everything. They're supposed to pronounce who they are, what they know, etc. And we're supposed to fawn over that. And we've learned to do that dance.
Yeah.
I help men be able to hold all the good things in their life while also be able to nurture the relationships that are also going to support that. So that's not only personally, but I mean, I can't tell you how many men I've helped get through the dating stage to like engagement and marriage where they're like so terrified that it's going to like, mess up their identity or their drive or anything, as
Right.
opposed to looking at it as actually like, this is your superpower if it's the right person, and helping men navigate what the right fit and complement would be there. But then also in relationship to their teams, like when you walk into one of the boardrooms of a team that I typically work with, like you can feel and sense the work that they've done by how they speak to each other, how they navigate conflict, how they're the first individually to own when they fuck up.
Yeah.
Like they're not asking anyone, or no one's like projecting. They're bringing it to the table themselves, and they're able to receive it as well. Like it's so beautiful to watch men in that space be really emotionally involved with each other.
It makes sense to me what you're hearing from the men, because I know for me personally, when I went on the self-discovery journey, which really started before, I mean, I've always been a lifelong learner, but I'm talking about in terms of doing a deep dive, it was probably a couple of years before I stopped drinking. I was like, look, I've got the running through walls thing down. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know how to do that. I don't need another coach that's going to tell me how to get 20% more out of my EBITDA. You know what I mean? Got it. Like I need to get more in touch with my own feminine nature or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I sought out a female coach. Listen, we have to coach across styles in the work that you do and the work that I do. I do think there's something to be said that like, I sometimes want to look for somebody that I respect and I like their style and I can relate to their style, that they're also from a behavioral standpoint maybe wired in a way that I'm not wired, so that I can see it from their view of the world.
Yeah. And I love that you bring this up. I think that's why you and I got along so well initially when we first met too. I work and collaborate with other coaches, consultants, and leaders who have a different skill set than mine, or more systems oriented. Where I'm the one filling in the systems. Like they're creating the lines and the structure and I'm filling in. I really help with the integration. Like what does it look like in the day to day, the nuance and the things that you can't see, but you can feel. Then let's look at the metrics and the data and see how it reflects back.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What is next for you right now? I heard that you were on this, I think it was this summer. Are you writing a book? You getting ready to write a book? Or am I bringing up a bad subject?
No, not at all. I think that's a sign from the universe that I need to be moving in that direction. I would say of all of my goals and visions, that's the one that I've had the most resistance to, like actually putting structure to. I write daily and I post daily on LinkedIn to have that muscle continuously being built while I move towards the structure of the book.
Yeah, it's been on my back burner as well. My marketing lead and we've got our framework done. We paused it at the first of the year to dive back into developing the business, but the framework's kind of cool. It's almost like writing a movie. We know the general plot line. You know, there's a beginning, we know there's a middle, we know there's an end, we know who the characters are. Now we got to go write all the lines. You know what I mean? One piece of advice I got was chunking it out. So instead of saying, I'm going to have a book written by the end of the year, saying by the end of Q2, the framework's going to be done. By the end of Q3, I'll fill in the first half. It's almost like running a marathon when you're only capable of running 3 miles right now. The more you think about 26 miles, the more daunting it is. But the idea of going from 3 miles this week to 4 miles next week to 5, we can deal with that, right? Like mentally.
Yeah. And I've had a writing coach specifically for this, and she's a New York Times bestseller. She created her own imprint. She was abducted by Somali pirates
Oh
like
my
12
God.
years ago when Obama called in SEAL Team 6 to like come and retrieve her. Like she's total badass. And during our work together, she realized I'm not supposed to tell the next part of my story. I'm supposed to help other women tell their stories. And so she and I worked together on mine, and I just was not in this stable place because I was traveling still.
Yeah,
And so I'm just there now where it's like the stability is there to hold the processing of writing.
that's cool.
I'm going to let this conversation hold me to it.
I'm afraid to hold you accountable because then you're going to hold me accountable. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do mine right now, but we can either keep each other on track or off track either way. Hey, it was great to see you, Katie. Thanks so much for jumping on. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
This is beautiful. Thank you for asking incredible, poignant questions.
Got it. Thanks so much. That's it for this episode of The Playbook by the Leaders Lab. Thanks for spending some time with us. We'd love it if you would subscribe, share the show, and leave a quick rating and review. Your feedback helps us grow, and it helps more leaders and founders join the conversation. If you'd like to talk more about hiring, scaling, or selling your business, please email me, ken@theleaderslab.co, or connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll be back soon with more strategies you can put to work today. I'm Ken Eslick with Annika Kwacha. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week in The Playbook.